My name is Amanda Therrien. I'm a staff lawyer with the National Association of Women in the Law. And for those of you who may be less familiar with NAL's work, we are a feminist law reform organization with more than 50 years of experience working to advance the substantive equality for women through legal education and policy reform. I'm here today to discuss Bill S-228, which seeks to address the practice of forced and coerced sterilization in Canada. We're here today to share some recommendations and potential amendments to the bill to ensure that it addresses forced and coerced sterilization without introducing unintended harms. Our first point of concern regarding this bill is that it is not fully gender inclusive. As drafted, the bill focuses on female reproductive anatomy, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, the uterus. And although we recognize that forced and coerced sterilization has been largely used against Indigenous women, we know that men, particularly disabled men, intersex people, and non-binary individuals have also been targeted. We are therefore recommending that this section refer to the reproductive organs of a person more broadly. Second, the bill risks chilling access to gender-affirming care and wanted permanent contraception. This is one of our most serious concerns. A prior version of this bill only captured procedures that were for the primary purpose of preventing reproduction, but this bill actually goes further. It is capturing any procedure that results in the permanent prevention of reproduction. This is an issue in the context of gender-affirming care. We often see individuals, organizations, and governments who are opposed to gender-affirming care describe it as mutilation, as maiming, and as being coercive. One of the most common talking points is around the supposed loss of fertility. So a broadly worded criminal code provision like this could be used or threatened in ways that create fear and hesitation among providers, which will limit access to this life-saving care. A similar concern exists when it comes to consensual permanent contraception. As mentioned in our brief, the concern surrounding access to wanted contraception was previously raised when Bill S-250, as it then was being studied during the last session. Dr. Diane Francoeur, CEO of the Society of Gynecologists and Obstetricians of Canada, noted that it is still incredibly difficult for women to obtain permanent sterilization in Canada, and that there's currently a 3-year wait list in Ontario for this procedure. And unfortunately, this is actually no longer a theoretical concern. Following the bill's passage through the Senate, a physician contacted NAL to advise that their hospital was instructing them not to provide permanent contraception to women. And we believe that this change was, at least in part, a response to this bill. The consequences are significant. It means fewer providers, more gatekeeping, and more barriers, particularly for women who are rural and remote, and women navigating reproductive coercion or family violence who may need access to permanent contraception safely and discreetly. Our solution to this is twofold. First, remove the phrase referring to any other procedure that results in the permanent prevention of reproduction. It is overly broad and creates legal uncertainty far beyond what this bill was meant to capture. Second, add a clear safeguard stating that nothing in this section limits access to contraception or gender-affirming care with the consent of the person. Finally, if I can raise a more technical point, this bill may actually make it forced sterilization harder or at least more confusing to prosecute rather than easier. Under the current state of the law, without this bill, non-consensual surgical procedures, including sterilization, constitute aggravated assault. And in order to prove aggravated assault, you do not have to prove that the impairment was permanent. However, if we look at the definition of sterilization procedure in Bill S-228, we see it defined as any procedure performed on a person that results in the permanent prevention of reproduction, regardless of whether the procedure is reversible. So this actually introduces a bit of uncertainty. If prosecutors want to charge someone with aggravated assault in the context of a sterilization procedure, are they now going to have to prove that the prevention of reproduction was permanent? The fact that it's not completely clear from this bill is the reason that we recommend actually removing the definition of sterilization procedure. We want to keep the focus on the lack of consent rather than on invasive and potentially contested medical questions. This would also bring it into alignment with the section on female genital mutilation, which is also a for greater certainty clause. It does not introduce a definition of FGM or require a permanent loss of function. It only lists out the behaviors that constitute maiming for the purposes of aggravated assault. So the final version of Bill S228 that we're proposing would be very short and would therefore read, for greater certainty, in this section, wounds or maims includes the severing, clipping, tying, cauterizing, or removal of the reproductive organs of a person. And two, nothing in this section shall be construed as limiting the ability of medical practitioners to provide contraception or gender-affirming care with the consent of the person. In closing, what has been missing up until now isn't a legal tool to prosecute forced and coerced sterilization. It's been the political will. This bill, as amended, will hopefully lead to more prosecutions, but the criminal law, without more, will not address systemic racism in our healthcare system. We need culturally safe care, Indigenous-led care, Indigenous language services, more accountability from medical regulatory bodies, and hospitals that enshrine the duty of free, prior, and informed consent in their policies. The criminal code cannot deliver these changes, and for that reason, Bill S228 must be the beginning of Canada's reckoning with forced and coerced sterilization and not its end. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.